So this video is all about feathers, and we're going to be doing all sorts of different things with different feathers. But first of all, I thought I'd start off with these small ostrich feathers, which are called spade-on, because they sort of look like a sword shape. But sometimes you don't want a sword shape like that with rough edges. So for example, let's strip one side. And the easiest way to do that is strip it down the spine. Now don't get rid of what we're stripping off, we're going to be using that later. So we strip all the fronds off, right up to the top if we can. Although the top's a bit delicate, sometimes the very top edge breaks off, but we'll do what we can. Right. Oop. So now we've got half a feather. Now we've got options with this. We could leave it as it is, but I don't like it as it is. We could take off a little bit at the bottom, like this, tidy up the edges. And then with a rotary cutter, you need to hold this very flat if you can, so it can be quite tricky. Now we have a very nice shape, so I'm just going to trim that edge off. So that's a much nicer shape for some sort of quite sophisticated styles. So there you've got it just literally cut. Now sometimes you need to shake it about and just see if there's some odd feathers loose, and you can see there are. So again, trim it up with the rotary cutter. I mean, you can do it with scissors, but honestly it's such hard work with scissors. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to iron that into a shape. So what I've done is I've brought my steam iron over. I don't want to melt my mat. I'm going to put that down and put that down on the mat. And what I'm going to try and do is curl it, okay, just by literally steaming it as much as I can, giving it a shake. If you steam it first, you get a better result. So give it a blast of steam, and then we have a very pretty shape. So that's just one little technique. I mean, you can keep curling if you want to. Let me just demonstrate. The feather itself can withstand quite a bit of heat. There we are. So that would look very pretty on something, wouldn't it? Okay. What you could do now is burn it. So that's another technique. When you burn feathers, you're chemically burning them, not with heat. So what I've done is put this on a mat to protect this mat. And what I'm going to use is normal household bleach. Now, what it will do is burn off the tiny little bits between the feathers. It will also change the colour, so bear that in mind, because you're bleaching it. So what we do is put the bleach on and you'll see the colour coming out. You can use bleaches that aren't so strong, but this gives a very quick effect. But of course you've got to dunk it in water to get all the bleach off. Bring my bleachy mat out of the way. Bring back my Dettol. lime greens and bright oranges, isn't it? And normally I would dry this with the hairdryer, but you can see just from me giving it a quick flick in the air, it's a totally different feather now. It's much more ethereal. It looks very pretty, and what you can do is form it round into a curve. If you shake them really quickly, yeah, so there we have. Matt is shaping and burning a spade on. Now we're going to get round to shaping more feathers, and then I'm going to do a video on making a feather mount. So although this video is free for my members, the mount might be on the general channel, but anyway. So what I've got, lots of blue feathers here. Some of them were attached to something and not very good. And I've got a couple of black ones here. Now sometimes you end up thinking, oh gosh, I'm cutting most of the feather away. Oh, what a waste. But most natural feathers aren't particularly brilliant shapes. They might be torn or have bits missing or be very thin like this. So for example, this would be much nicer if it was stripped, partially stripped, like so. And then cut into a diamond shape. Oh, I'll get there in the end. Bit fiddly. So let's do it the other way around. So now we've got a much nicer, now we've lost most of the feather, but we've got a much nicer feather for attaching to something or making something with. So again, you can just cut that in tiny little diamonds, and they're much more effective than a big floppy, not very brilliant feather. Now, of course, you can cut into the feather. So I'm going to take a little bit more off here, a little bit more off there, because I want, again, this to be nice. So holding the feather like this, I'm going to cut fairly equidistant if I can manage it. And you'll see I've got, don't cut through the spine, otherwise you know, you've wrecked it. So you can do lots of nice shapes with feathers. So now we've got sort of a really pretty little shape there as well. And don't forget, you don't have to cut them into shapes like that. You can cut them into, I'm going to do this very carefully. I'm getting bits of feather everywhere. Sometimes it's ideal to wet it with your finger and just flatten it onto the bench so you've got a bit more manoeuvrability. Okay, so then we've got a heart shape feather. So again, another feather shape to work with. And what I'm going to do with these were already on something else, and they are particularly a bit of a rubbish shape. So I'm going to strip the ends. And Now, if you strip, obviously when the feathers are dyed, they're dyed as a whole. If you strip them off and you've got white, just use a Sharpie with pen with the nearest colour that you've got to that to fill in that colour loss. But you can see they're already nicer. They're much nicer than that thing there. And again, we can cut that into a nice shape. I could just cut it across like so. I'm going to wet my finger. Actually, it's probably easier that way around. Wet my finger just to hold it down. And just go like that. And again, see, it's so much nicer. And what you can do is put lots of feathers together that way around into a flower. But I'm going to be doing more, but I just thought I haven't had a chance to do an awful lot this week, and I thought my poor members, they're missing out. So I'll do a bit of feather work, but I am going to be adding to this as we go along. Now, I don't know if you'll see this. This is actually part of a feather that's been completely stripped, and all I'm using is the spine of the feather. But again, that makes very nice. And we can curl that round with the curling tongs and have a really pretty shape. I'll put it against something, another colour. You probably don't see it against the green. Yeah, so I'm going to curl that with the curling tongs. But I'm going to do most of that when I do the video for the actual mount. So, as I say, if you feel, oh, maybe I've stripped more off than I have got, don't ever use things just as they are. You want them to be nice, elegant, pretty. Don't think, you know, I've cut too much off. We just want nicer shapes, and that is a nicer shape. And because I want different colours, I've got some really sweet little feathers here, so I'm going to strip those down, make those really pretty. And as you can see, we're going to have a much nicer arrangement of feathers with all of these little bits put together. So I'm going to carry on with that, but I just thought, oh, I'll pop a little short video on, and I will talk more feathers with you. Don't worry, this is just sort of a taster.